welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Chelsea, and if you are new here, I am a registered nurse in Atlanta, Georgia. And basically on this channel, I just talk about everything nursing, health, and wellness as well. So if you are interested in those type of topics, then keep on watching and make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about my 1 month update on being off of birth control. So a little bit of a background. I'm 26 years old right now. I have been on birth control since I was 16 years old. I wrote down a lot of different things that I want to touch on, and I also have them on my phone. So if you guys see me looking down, that is the reason why. A little bit of a background is, first of all, I want to put a disclaimer here and just say that I am in no way bashing anybody that is on birth control or decides to get off of it. Because for me, it actually helped me not get pregnant for 10 years. So for me, it worked. I have no issue with birth control at all, but I'm just going to talk about my experience with getting off of it and why I feel like it really overall improved me. So like I said, a little bit of a background is that I've been on birth control since I was 16. Originally, I went on it because I knew I didn't want to have children. I knew that I saw a lot of different people in my classroom that were pregnant and had a hard time, or the father wasn't there, or they were on their own. Financially, they could not afford to, provide for a child. So I knew that if that were me, I would not know what to do with myself in that circumstance. So in order to prevent that, I went on birth control, just in case it were to happen. I never really had like back cramps or anything. I've never had like any underlying issues such as like PCOS or anything like that. I never really had bad periods either. So I really went on it just because I didn't want to get pregnant. Simple as that. I was on the low hormonal pill, and I've always been on the pill, so I've never done any other form of birth control. I've been on the pill for 10 years. I did have a period of about 7 months between a relationship where I did actually stop birth control. The reason why I did was because I am not a person who has like casual hookups. So if I'm not in a relationship, I'm not hooking up with anybody. That's just me. So I knew that between those relationships, I was like, oh, I'm not planning on getting into another relationship for probably a couple years. I was off birth control for about 7 months, and I saw a huge improvement. During that time that I was off of it for the 7 months, I noticed I went from 168 pounds to 140 pounds. Now, normally my weight, for the most part, it fluctuated a lot when I was on birth control. I found it very, very difficult for me to lose weight when I was on birth control, versus when I got off of birth control, I just dropped weight like instantly. Although I was working out about 2 to 3 times a week, but I mean, it wasn't like weightlifting or anything like that. Like, it was just like, getting on the Stairmaster, just your regular like cardio, and occasionally like using the machines. So it wasn't like an intense workout in my opinion. Plus, I didn't really change my diet at all either. The one thing that I can say is that I was working night shift and I was running around a lot on my floor that I was on. So maybe it attributed to that, plus working out a lot, plus being off of birth control. So I will say, even from this experience of being off of it for about a month and a week, I've noticed that I can drop weight pretty easily and I can keep it off. That's one of my experiences that I had with the 7 months of being off of it. So let's talk about what birth control actually does. So scientifically, what it does is to prevent your ovulation from occurring. So ovulation is when the egg goes through the fallopian tubes into the uterus to wait to be fertilized. So it prevents the ovulation from occurring. It also can thicken your mucus, your vaginal discharge, and it also thins the lining of the uterus, which makes it difficult for a fertilized egg to attach to the uterus. Stay with me, y'all. I know it's a lot of like scientific stuff that goes into this, but I have to explain those types of things. Some people really don't understand how birth control actually works in the body, and I think it's really helpful to know the background kind of, science behind it. So in a way, birth control kind of tricks your body into thinking it's pregnant, which might be the reason why there's a lot of like weight gain that is associated with it, because of the hormones that are pumping into your body. It tricks your body into thinking that it has something to provide for, even though it doesn't. My experience with getting off of birth control for the past month has been a lot of weight loss. So I weighed 168 and now I weigh 156. So that was 12 pounds. Am I right? Am my math right? Yeah. So that was 12 pounds in a month and a week. Yes, I do work out. I work out about 2 to 3 times a week. I do like weightlifting and things like that. So I work out a lot more intense than I did in the past, but it has only been 1 month. So I'll definitely update you guys after like a couple months just to see like what my weight is fluctuating like. But again, back then I didn't do any like weight training, so I was just doing straight cardio, which made me lose a lot of fat and probably a lot of muscle, versus now I do a lot of weight training, so I gain muscle. So I don't think I'll notice a huge like weight difference just because of how I, you know, work out now versus back then. So my weight fluctuated a lot when I was on birth control. I found it really hard for me to lose weight and to keep it off, so that's one thing that I hated. Also, I think that a lot of women have this issue, is that we don't like our lower abdomen area, our lower stomach, our fupa. So I would say that on birth control I noticed that that fupa would not go anywhere at all whatsoever. So now I'm working on trying to get that a little bit more flatter, but I've noticed that it's nowhere near as bloated as I was before. That's an improvement in my opinion. These seasons changing are really messing with my sinuses, so that's why I sound kind of nasally. But the reason why I got off of the birth control pill is because I'm sick and tired of taking a pill every day. Like, I don't like the responsibility of having to take a pill every day, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's like, I don't know, I'm just sick and tired of taking it. I wanted to see what my body can do on its own, being off of birth control. I totally forgot like what my body was like being off of it, because so when I went off of it back when I was, you know, off of it for about 7 months, I wasn't with anybody. So I didn't notice those side effects or those returns of things that happen when you get off of birth control, because I wasn't with anybody. Versus now, I definitely noticed it. Initially, I said I wouldn't get off of birth control until I got married, but I think that the biggest thing for me was that in the past, the partners that I was with, I knew for sure that I did not want to have kids with them. But now, I finally found a partner who I know that I want to marry, I know that I want to have children with. So I think that my anxiety of getting off of birth control is a lot less now that I'm with the person who I'm with now. Versus back then, it was like, oh my God, if I ever got off of birth control, like, I don't know what I would do if I ever got pregnant by this person, because I would be on my own, basically, is what I'm saying. So I pretty much knew that off of the last relationships, it was a no bueno. Like, it was just a no-go. That's why I stayed on it, and that's why I was only off of it when I was single. So 1 month update is that I feel like I'm getting back to myself. I feel like my mood has really improved. It's really enhanced. I think that I attribute that to the hormones, for one. I think that when I was on birth control, I did a lot of crying. Like, I don't know what was making me so upset all the time, but I would cry like multiple times a month, and I wouldn't understand why I'm crying. Like, it was kind of like, it was like, you know, like something's up, you know what I'm saying? But I didn't, for me, it was just like, oh, I'm just an emotional person. But now that I'm off of it, it's like that doesn't happen anymore, for one. For two, I can control it a lot better, even though I am a moody person. If you guys don't know me, I am a Cancer, so we can be a little moody. But I would say that it's much more controlled now that I'm off of birth control, if that makes sense. I think that I have more energy. Being a night shift nurse, I think that a lot of times I'm just very tired all the time. But even with being off of birth control now, I feel like I'm able to regulate my schedule a lot better. I'm able to be more awake and more like present in moments, instead of like being so tired and drained all the time like I was on birth control. I want to talk about diet. So diet is a big thing. I think that when I was on birth control, I had a lot of cravings, a lot of junk food that I wanted to eat, a lot of candy. Like, there was just so many things I wanted to eat all the time. I had a very unbalanced diet, I guess. And now, with working out as well, but also being off of birth control, it's much easier for me to maintain those cravings. And even when I do get a craving, it's only like when I'm on my period. Like, I just want like a Hershey's white chocolate bar. Like, anybody else really like those? Because I love white chocolate bars. I love white chocolate bars. That is the only craving that I find myself having since being off of birth control, is just during my period. But everybody, I feel like every woman gets some type of craving on their period. Just side note, comment down below what your craving is on your period, because I would really like to know. Mine, like I said, are Hershey's, white chocolate, cookies and cream bars, or a Twix. I'll settle for a Twix. But those are my two favorites. So comment down below what your craving is. I just want to know. Yes, I would say that my diet is a lot more regular being off of birth control. So the pros of being off of birth control obviously is weight loss, your mood improves, you have an increased libido or a return of libido. I didn't really notice that when I was off of it for the 7 months that I was off of it because I wasn't with anybody. So I didn't really notice like an increased drive at all. But now I definitely do. I definitely notice that now that I'm actually with a partner versus when I was on birth control. Mental health is another big one, body control, as well as hair growth. So I didn't experience this, although I did experience like hair loss when I was in nursing school. And it started to grow back obviously once I got out of nursing school due to like the stress and everything and the anxiety. But a lot of people actually have hair loss from birth control, or at least they say that it's because they got on birth control. I never had that really issue, but I will say that I do have some thinning on the side right here. But I think it's probably because I wear my hair in a ponytail all the time. Like when I wear my hair natural, I wear it up in like a high bun. So I think it's just more so tension on that area, but we'll see. I'll give you guys an update in a couple months to see if that actually starts to grow back. So the cons obviously are possible pregnancy, of being off of birth control, and adult acne. Those are the only two cons that I have. I want to talk about the side effects of birth control. There's so many side effects to birth control in general, but I think that the pill has a little bit less side effects than the other forms of birth control. So the side effects with birth control are blood clots for one. That's a big thing because if you're a smoker, that's why they tell you not to smoke if you're on birth control, because cigarettes already put you at a higher risk of developing blood clots and like strokes and things like that. But if you're also on birth control as well, it can increase your risk of developing a blood clot in your leg, which can also travel to your brain, it can travel to your heart, to your lungs. So it's very dangerous to smoke cigarettes while you're on birth control. So if you're doing that, please stop. I know it's really easy to say stop, but like just consider that because you're putting yourself at risk already. Another side effect of birth control is low potassium. So this is something that I did not know, but I guess that long-term use of birth control can cause you to have low potassium, which can result in fatigue as well as muscle cramps or cardiac changes, so your heart rhythm can change. It's not necessarily dangerous, but it can be dangerous depending on how low it gets. I think that one big pro of being on birth control that I had was that I didn't really have anxiety, or I wasn't worried of getting pregnant because I was taking my birth control as it should be taken. Like I took it at 7 o'clock on the dot every single time. So I had little to no anxiety of getting pregnant when I was on birth control. Versus now, I think I have a little bit of anxiety, but not as bad because I know that the partner who I'm with, ultimately, I do want to marry that person. I do want to have kids with that person. So my anxiety is a lot less versus if I were with the partners that I was with prior, there was no way I was going to get off of birth control. Like absolutely no way. So let's talk about the birth control form. So there's many different forms of birth control. There's a pill, there's a NuvaRing, there's the IUD, the depot shot, and Nexplanon. The reason why I chose the pill was because for me it was the safest like form of birth control. Like I just take it once a day. I get my hormones over a period of time versus like all at once like the depot shot is. I don't have to go to monthly appointments. I know with the depot shot you have to go like, you know, I think once every 3 months or something like that. So I didn't have to worry about having to, you know, go get checkups every time, which can be very inconvenient, especially if you're like out of town or something like that. With the IUD, I was worried about like rejection because my body already rejects like piercings and things like that. So I was like, I don't want my body to reject something that's foreign in my body like an IUD. Plus, IUDs can travel. Like they can go to your fallopian tubes when they were started in your uterus, which is very, very dangerous. So I just didn't want all those like side effects of like traveling and having to go to appointments and having to put something inside of me like the NuvaRing. I just wanted to just take my pill and go on about my day. So lastly, I wanted to talk to you guys about a big tip that I want you guys to consider, especially my women. Consider that I don't think birth control is for everybody. I will say that. I don't think it's for everybody. I think that you just have to kind of weigh out what is best for your body and your schedule. sometimes taking a pill every day is not the best fit for a stay-at-home mom who has a billion things to do. So I think that the pill is very unrealistic for those type of people, but for me it was realistic. It was something that I could adhere to and I could follow with no difficulties. It's not for everybody, you know. Some people don't want to be on birth control. They don't want to put extra hormones into their body, which I totally understand, you know. So I will say that as an ER nurse, I'm gonna have to talk to y'all because, you know, some of y'all are like my little sisters, you know, and I want to give you guys the best advice ultimately. So based on being an ER nurse, and even when I was a tech in the ER, I found that there were so many girls, young girls and also just young women who were coming in because they were having like multiple abortions or even one abortion, or they were having miscarriages. When you have a miscarriage, you often have to go through the procedure called a D&C. So a D&C basically is a removal of tissue that is left in your body after you have an abortion or if you have a miscarriage and your body doesn't regularly get rid of that tissue. So some of that tissue can be left inside of you if they don't go in and remove it. And if it is left inside of you, it can cause you to have like serious infections, you know, go septic, you know, really have a lot of issues. So you definitely want to get that tissue removed if you have a miscarriage or if you have an abortion. Now with the D&C, sometimes it can cause you to have your lining to be scarred. You can start to develop scar tissue, which makes it really hard for your womb or your uterus to carry a child to full term. So what I'm basically saying is that miscarriages with a D&C or an abortion with a D&C can make your risk of, I guess, retaining a pregnancy a little bit harder versus actually preventing the pregnancy from happening. So if you prevent it by using condoms or, you know, using birth control options, then you're putting yourself at less risk of having, I guess, difficulties like retaining your pregnancy. I hope that makes sense to you guys. Basically, I'm saying that if you do consider those things, if you do consider not being on birth control and not using condoms, then just know that you're putting yourself at risk of pregnancy. If you don't want to get pregnant and you decide to abort it, or if you decide to, or if you have a miscarriage, then just know that a D&C can put you at higher risk of complications in the future if you actually want to have children. So yeah, like I said, birth control is not for everybody. There's other things that you can do besides getting on birth control. Like you can use condoms. Like I know that a lot of guys don't like using them, but who cares? If you don't like using a condom, like grow up. Period. Just grow up. Because unless you want an STD or unless you want to have a child with that person and they want to have a child with you back, you need to be putting on a condom. Period. Point blank. We're not going to go into that topic because there's a lot of stuff I can say about that. But obviously if you don't want to go on birth control as a woman, you have a right to not want to go on it and you shouldn't be bashed for that. But just make sure that you're protecting yourself in other ways if possible. Yeah. And then lastly, I mean, if you're with a guy, say you have multiple kids by one baby daddy, or if you're actually married. If you already have multiple kids and you don't want to have more kids, you both don't want to have more kids, and you don't want to go on birth control, talk to him about getting a vasectomy. Why is that something that a lot of people don't want to talk about? Like, go get a vasectomy and prevent me having to get my tubes tied, because I'm not going under the knife to get a major procedure like getting my tubes tied when you don't want to go into the doctor's office for an hour procedure getting a vasectomy. Again, that's another topic that I could really go into depth with, but we're not going to go in depth with it on this video. So that is another option outside of birth control. If you already have children and you both don't want any more, that is a conversation that you may need to have. So that is all I have for you guys. I really appreciate you all for watching this video. Make sure you guys like this video and comment down below. I would love to know your experience on birth control and how it worked for you, or if it didn't work for you. I would love to hear your thoughts. I really hope that you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next video. You guys want to see my dog? This is my dog. This is my dog. So he was just sleeping, but I know that you guys probably haven't seen him in a little bit, so I decided to pull him on camera. This is Loki's. Well, his name is Loki, but this is Loki. He's so big now. He's like 13 pounds, I think. But this is Loki's. Yeah. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye.